Mpox has been reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo for more than a decade, and the number of cases reported each year has increased steadily over that period. Last year, reported cases increased significantly, and already the number of cases reported so far this year has exceeded last year's total, with more than 14,000 cases and 524 deaths. Today, the emergency committee met and advised me that, in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice. The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying. In addition to other outbreaks of other clades of Mpox in other parts of Africa, it's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives.
Welcome, everyone, to the Wake Up Call channel. Is this the global emergency that really, in a sense, we've all been waiting for? Not because we've been anticipating it and hoping it would happen, because we know that it's coming, because they keep telling us that it's coming. They keep doing drills showing us that more lockdowns are coming, more rights of ours are going to be stripped from us in order to get certain things inside of your body. And of course, this all coincides with the digital ID as well. So the WHO, as you just heard out of the devil's mouth itself, Tedros just let us know that a global emergency has been declared over the monkeypox. Now, we need to look at a few things, including a drill that they showed us a few years ago, very much like they did with Event 201 before the last outbreak, which I'll show you in a minute. But first, let's take a look at some of the other stuff that's out there. This is the second time that the WHO has declared a public health emergency since that outbreak. They did declare the monkeypox in 2022 a public health emergency, only to take their foot off the pedal. Maybe that's because not enough people were buying into it, or maybe it's because they needed more time to prep the propaganda machine, because all this stuff that they do obviously all centers around the propaganda and how much they can psychologically get into your head to scare you enough to do the things they want you to do. In other words, to scare you enough into compliance. Now, Disease X is the big thing. Is this Disease X is a question we've all been asking for the last couple of years. They keep telling us that Disease X is coming, that it's not a matter of if it's coming, it's a matter of when it's coming, which tells us what? Well, it tells us it's a matter of when they decide to unleash this psyop on the masses. So we don't know if it's Disease X, but we certainly will monitor it since they're declaring it a global emergency. The other thing, of course, is many people thought that the bird flu was going to be Disease X. I talked about the bird flu when they started pushing the bird flu and how humans were suddenly getting the bird flu a few years ago. And I pretty much hit the nail on the head when it came to the bird flu being very important to the food supply chain and why they were going to use the bird flu to continually kill off the food supply chain by using CRISPR. Now, CRISPR won't necessarily euthanize those chickens and that cattle that gets CRISPR inside of it. What it'll do is it'll make it transmissible. So in other words, you may resist getting this injected into your body, but the food that you eat, if it has CRISPR in it, it will be transmissible into your body. So by getting all of the chickens and all of the cattle, that includes the eggs that come out of the chicken to have CRISPR in it and gene editing, it'll go into your body and then they'll be able to gene edit you that way. So we look at the bird flu and we can see what the purpose of the bird flu is, as that is happening at the same time as this monkeypox outbreak. And again, the other thing to focus on is remember with the trial run that they just did. All of these states that are mainly liberal states that will never flip, and this is done by design, this really doesn't have anything to do with the people who are there. This is what they've chosen. New York City, a state like California, a state that'll always be Democrat, right? You can go to New York City, you find a lot of New Yorkers that are not on board with the stuff that's going on. A lot of them, probably a lot more than you would find, who are compliant to this. But New York State is a perfect example of what happened during the outbreak, because they put a lot of laws in place that gave the state the authority to lock people up. It gave the state the power to direct local health authorities to issue isolation and quarantine orders to control the spread of highly communicable diseases. And that brings me to this, because we've all heard about Event 201. No matter where you were at the time of this stuff going on, whether you were a subscriber to my channel or someone else, you've probably heard of Event 201. If you don't know, Event 201 was a drill that was happening right before the outbreak happened. And I've mentioned many times in many of my videos and shown you proof that they run drills simultaneously almost with live events that go off. This happens in schools when these drills happen in schools, and then a live event happens in schools. It happened on the 11th day of September. It happened at the Boston Marathon. You could go through countless events that we look at as history and see that there were drills that were happening at the same exact time, military drills. So Event 201 happened, and of course they went live with Event 201 right after it. Well, there was a monkeypox drill and a video that I'll play for you here that was released in 2021 that had a simulation in place about what it would look like if we had an actual monkeypox outbreak. They even outlined the steps and the stages of it. Here is a look at that video that I put out a few years ago. This clip was featured on the Nuclear Threat Initiative's YouTube channel. And again, we know that the WHO and all these so-called non-elected officials who were scientists who were acting in the name of medicine, that they've run drills using the monkeypox. And now we're hearing that, once again, the monkeypox is a global emergency.
There are growing questions today around a new and deadly outbreak. Scientists determined that this monkeypox virus was engineered. With limited antiviral drugs and no known effective treatments, countries around the world are struggling to control another pandemic with already devastating effects.
Seeing far fewer cases in countries where governments took early and decisive action.
And some international experts are urging the WHO to adopt a phased approach to warnings.
So after they released that video, they even had a blueprint out there, just like Event 201, where they showed us scenarios around it. Move one, scenario, monkeypox outbreak, 1,421 cases, 4 deaths, key issues, international alert, warning systems. Move two, they go to another scenario where they show you that the monkeypox engineered can be vaccine resistant. National responses affects early action, 83 countries affected, 70 million cases. So they show you a blueprint of how this is going to play out in all these scenarios. Then you get people like Bill Gates, who of course we all know that we can trust, right? Of course, I'm kidding. You couldn't pick a more wicked person. The same person who tells us it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the next outbreak they decide to unleash on us actually happens, which again is really an outbreak of the actual people who get the magic potion in their body and then decide, to shed it onto all the people out there who try to stay away from it. But here's Bill talking about the next plan that they have in place, and of course, how this will look in regards to a potential bioterrorist who is bringing the pox to an airport, potentially 10 airports. Sounds like this could be where we're headed next, right out of the movie Outbreak.
And are we doing things now, or rather are we not doing things now that we really need to be doing in preparation for the next pandemic?
We are ready for the next pandemic, but it'll take tens of billions in R&D that the US and the UK will be part of that. It'll take probably about $1 billion a year for a pandemic task force at the WHO level which is doing the surveillance and actually doing what I call germ games, where you practice. You say, okay, what if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports? You know, how would the world respond to that? What if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports? A bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports.
A bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports.
So we, we'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time. Mm-hmm.
So again, there's a lot of programming out there. We all know that this is not over. Everybody who's been paying attention to this knows that it's not over yet. They need these outbreaks. These outbreaks are how they strip us of our rights, strip us of our laws, and then cause us to be divided over it. You have a group of people who are completely brain dead, who continually believe everything they hear on the news. And then when these people who come out on national TV, on all these talk shows like Bill Gates, they trust them. They don't know him, but they trust him. And this is all based, of course, on politics, how these people get emotionally invested in politics. Then they can play the left-right on them and say, well, this person's this person's that. Who's the one who released the magic potion? Who's the one who says that we should do this versus that? So in other words, when Trump came out with Operation Warp Speed, all the Democrats out there weren't in on the magic potion. Then it flipped regimes. And of course, the conservatives were then out. And of course, all the people who were involved in the CIA Q PSYOP and continue to be. We're told that they switched out a good one with a bad one. I mean, the stuff that they push and they put on the minds of the people that they actually fall for is pretty much everything, right? There's nothing out there that's organically out there. All the news is manufactured and formulated. So the WHO is declaring a global emergency now. All we can do is watch and see where this goes, right? The epidemic is concentrated in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but the virus has now appeared in a dozen other African countries. And all it takes is one of these stories of somebody went from, the Congo and got on a plane and went to the UK. And then that person in the UK coughed and that person got onto another plane. And then two people went in two different directions. And one went to America and one went to Australia. And the next thing you know, just like these articles that are out there right now talking about the monkeypox, they suddenly step in and say, well, what needs to be done next? Well, what needs to be done next is to make sure what happens last time doesn't happen. So the government needs to step in before it gets out of control, which means the government needs to make more mandates before things get out of control, like immediately start telling you to wear masks again, immediately start telling you to social distance again, and of course, use your technology, most importantly, to social distance. And then it gives them more leeway to come out with the digital ID. In countries that will, as of right now, would look like they would never take a digital ID to say, look, we won't force you to get this put in your body, but how about the digital ID? At least we'll be able to know who has it and who doesn't and who goes where and who doesn't go where. You can protect your kids. You can protect your family, right? So while everybody's going to be paying attention to the magic potion, saying you're not getting it in me, you're not getting it in me, like the alt-right media will be telling you, which of course nobody should get it in them, they won't be paying attention to these other things that they're going to push onto the people. Right? Not just quarantines, not just social distancing. The digital ID is what's important to note because we know they've been talking about the digital ID and how we need to have this passport so we can see who has it and who doesn't have it. And then, of course, we can see who got on a plane and who didn't get on a plane. Or for example, they'll use a story if they decide to go with the monkeypox here and tell you that somebody left the Congo and went to the UK or some other country. They'll say, well, if we actually had digital passports in place, we could track all those people who are on that plane. We could quarantine them. We can get them all potioned, and then we don't have to worry about the outbreak spreading. But until we have that technology in place, aka that stranglehold over humanity in place, well, we won't be able to do that. So we need to have a digital passport, so to speak. It is coming. It is happening. It's about compliance, how they can get you to comply. So make sure you're not just paying attention to anything that comes out with quarantines, with masks, with getting the potion in your body. Watch the digital ID stuff and the digital passport stuff. It is crucial to all of this. Again, the alt-right media, they're going to come out and you know what they're going to talk about? They're going to say it's a scare from the WHO. It's a scare from the globalists. Why is it a scare from the globalists? Why? Well, because they want to interfere with Donald Trump, because that's all they think about. That's all these people think about who think that they're awake, right? These conservatives, they just are obsessed with Trump. So they'll say, look, they're going to try to steal the election. They don't even pay attention to this stuff with the digital ID and how we're relinquishing our rights to these people who are all in bed together. They just think Trump and they just think Harris/Biden. That's all they think about. So we have to pay attention to this and share this with people so that they pay attention to just how dangerous the digital ID is. All the stuff going on around us about climate change, it ties into the digital ID. Okay, you can't just focus purely on the magic potion itself and getting that in you. That's what they want you to 100% focus on. And of course, it's important not to get it in you. Okay, it's important not to get it in you, but it's also important to watch the other stuff going on around it, because the alt-right media, and certainly not the communist Democrat media, is not going to report on the dangers of a digital ID. They're working you into the digital ID with all these stories about hackings and scams and all this other crap with data breaches, all by design to get you compliant to it. And this is one of the agendas that will come out of the next Disease X, whether this is it or not. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.